Good morning. It's Groovy Tuesday. How are you all? Hopefully you can all hear me. I think I've remembered to turn the mics on and everything else. So yeah, Tuesday already. Wow, where does the time go? I thought, since it's nice and sunny outside, well it is down here in Kent, I'd go all colourful, short sleeves on, get the arms out. So how are we all doing? Hopefully we'll hear from Jilly shortly to let me know that the sound is all good to go. Good, good. Hi Hilda. There we go. Text from Jilly, maybe? No? Yay, sound is good. I'm getting the hang of this game. So absolutely perfect. So, right, I think we're good to go. How is everybody? Everybody okay? Tuesdays, all of a sudden they sort of come round so quickly. I don't know what happens. So yes, I thought a nice colourful shirt, the sun's shining. We're going to add some colour to our beautiful butterfly wreath that we've been working on over the past 3 weeks. 4th week already. Where does the time go? Crazy, crazy, crazy. Ah, nice cup of coffee. Thank you, Jilly. Jilly made that for me before we started. So Jilly's in the room with you today. So if you've got any questions or you're looking for anything, then ask away, and she'll try and text me through if she's not sure of the answer. But I know a lot of our lovely design team are also in the room with you during the course of the hour. So again, they're more than willing to share and everything else. So how are we doing? Are we all okay? Yeah, it's been a strange old weekend and week and, well, past 12 months really, isn't it? But you know what? There seems to be light and coming forward. So we just take each day as it comes. As Barb says, one day at a time, and it's the only way that we can do that. And it seems to work for Barb, it works for me, and I know it works for a lot of people. Just wake up, be grateful that you're awake, and you just get on and do what you have to do. So, should we get started? Should we have a look where we're going today? So for over the course of the past couple of weeks, what we've done, we've taken the beautiful plates and we created this beautiful design. Okay, so rather than use the whole of the plate, we practiced by tracing out the whole of the plate, didn't we, to start off with, just to get our warm up for all those lovely new people out there that have been jumping on board. So we traced it out and we had a play. Then we had a look at how we could add wording, and this is where the plate mate really comes into play, that comes in the starter kit. I'm using the large starter kit, but I know a lot of you have purchased the mini starter kit as well, and it's exactly the same, but it's just a little bite-sized one. So if we look at the comparisons between the two different designs, you can see this is using from the large plate mate, and this is using the small plate mate. So we can still create exactly the same design, it's just in a different size. And for me, that's what the Groovi system's all about. It gives you the starting point to get creative. It's nice and easy to do it. This butterfly wreath is a plate that we're going to use over the upcoming months, and we're going to do all different things with it. So last week what we did was we looked at some white work, didn't we? And as homework, what I suggested was that we went through and we did some white work in different areas. So you can see here, I put some white work in the butterfly area. I've done it on some of the leaves. I've done it on the center of the flowers. And this was probably about 4 or 5 different layers. You see? And what will happen is that when we start to introduce some color, just like I've done on this sample here, you can see how that whiteness really does start to jump out. Okay, so it's all about getting the confidence, and for me the Groovi system gives you that confidence to get that line art. And once you've got that line art, you can stop. You can say, right, that's it, I don't want to do anymore, I don't want to know anymore, I don't want to learn anymore. But what you can do, if you just love the effect of tracing out, then why not do it on some designer parchment, and then you haven't got to worry about doing any colour. See, and it looks just as gorgeous as it does on clear parchment, because you still get that beautiful crisp white line art. So the Groovi system gives you that versatility to be able to create that beautiful line art. And then, as I've always said, and Barb says it the same, it's been on that bus journey. If you're happy that by tracing out the line art and you think, that's it, I don't want to do anymore, then you can stop at that point. And then when you build up your plate collection, you'll go through, right, okay, I like this. And over the course of the coming months, we're going to stick with the butterfly wreath and we're going to do different little bits of it. Next week, what we're going to do, we're going to turn the circle into a square. Really, really simple. Going ahead, Barb made a really good suggestion this morning. We can make little coasters, we can do bookmarks, we can do picot cutting, we can do no picot cutting. And it's all about just taking it gently as we travel through the 12 months ahead. And hopefully with the Groovi system, for me, I know it does it for me, it's my relaxant. And for me, I can just trace out a design, I don't need to do anything else to it, just trace it out. And for me, it blocks out, I'm still thinking about what's going on, but it just blocks it. And it just takes me into a completely different space. And to be honest with you, I've said it before, I've actually fallen asleep whilst tracing it out, because for it's that it's just that downtime. So what we're going to have a look at today is introducing some colour. Now there's so many different mediums you can use on the back of the parchment, and we're going to work on the back to start off with because it's more forgiving. So we've got our beautiful pergoliner pencils, which we're going to concentrate on today, and as you can see, it's a really nice starting point for colouring in. You can see which ones I use the most. Now there's two different types of pencils in the box. Oh, that's annoying me that you can't, there we go. So we've got the ones with the white writing on, which are called our B pencils, our basic or blending. And then we've got ones that have got black writing on, which are A for aqua. So you've got a real nice colour palette in here, and you can mix the colours together. Now, when I'm working on colouring in with my parchment, for me personally, the pencils are more forgiving. And I feel that I can get more of a blend in colourway. And I'll show you that if you make a mistake, it's easy to remove that mistake. In addition to that, we've got the beautiful Perga colour pens, and it's a series of 30 water-based pens as well. And you've got a really nice sort of colour palette in there as well. What I love about these, whoops, that was noisy. What I love about this is the dual tip to them. So we've got a really fine tip to getting into all those detailed areas. And then on the reverse, you've got your bullet tip. Now these tips are really, really good. They're so strong. But for me, with the pens, they're a little less forgiving and they can be quite dominant in colour. However, we can change that and we can work with that. It's just learning different techniques and different ways of using the instruments that you've got in front of you. Another good item to colour in with is ink pads, dye-based ink pads. Barbara's often used like the artistry ink pads, and if you've got those little mini ones, you've got a beautiful colour palette, and you just squidge it out on your mix mat, pick it up with your blending pen, and again you can sort of build up your colours as well. So hopefully you've either got some colouring pencils, doesn't matter if they're not wax pencils. A lot of you I know have got the Faber-Castell pencils, which are, as Barb says, the Rolls-Royce of pencils. But I thought today we'll keep it nice and easy because we'll work with the pencils, because again, as I say, if you're new to colouring in on parchment, they're a lot more forgiving. And over the period of the 12 months, 2 years, however long we're here in the Groovi Tuesday, then we'll build up and we'll look at different colour mediums. And we'll look at putting colour on the front. I might do a little bit of colouring in on the front just to show you the effect that you can get. So what we're going to need is our pencils. Okay, so as I say, I'm going to go with the beautiful pergoliners. If you've got the polychromos, you'll have colours, you'll have a bigger palette of colours to work with. Then in addition to that, I'm going to use some Dorso oil, which smells really nice. Now there's other blending solutions out there as well, but I thought it's Pergamano, so we will go with that. Spot on sponge, I know a lot of you have got those on there, just so that we can put the oil on. If you haven't got a sponge, then some tissue will work just as well, just to pick up the oil. Then I've got my lovely blending pen, and then I've got a selection of nibs. So I keep all my nibs in here so that I can go back, and this pot here is just when I'm using blending oil. I've got another pot that I use if I'm working with ink pads or if I'm working with the pens. Okay. And then key is your eraser pencil. White pencil, eraser, pink eraser, and this is where the magic works. Okay. So I'll give you a few minutes to get your bits together, so to speak. And what we're going to do, we're going to have a look, and this is the one that I sort of just made up to show a sample and show on the colouring in. But for me, you can just keep it really simple. I've chosen a number of different colourways. We've got some beautiful blends. My favourite blends is using the red and the yellow together to create a beautiful orange. I mean, you've got some oranges in the B pencils, but I like creating that blend. See, and then you've got a little bit of depth down here where we can go in. And what I love about the pencils is that you can build up layer upon layer upon layer to intensify the colour. So. Okay, let's have a look. We're going to work on the piece that we've created with, but I think what we'll do first, we'll just have a practice. Remember at the beginning, we traced out our wreath, and we was practicing on this last week when we was practicing our white work. So I thought it would be a really good idea if we practiced on this first, just to have a look at our colour palette. So I'm going to pop that to one side because I need a flat surface to work on. Now I'm using the A3 black mat, but in the starter kit you get your A4 black mat if you've gone for the deluxe one, which is the hard side, and then the soft side, which we was using last week. If you've gone for the mini starter kit, then you get a little baby A5 one, so more than sufficient to work with. And that's all we need. We just need something to work on. Now for colouring in, for those of you that have been doing it for a while, you may want to use your light panel. We're waiting for those to come back into stock, but again, I find if I'm working at home, then the light panel is really good for colouring in as well. So let's have a look. We're going to work on the back. Are we all ready? Am I right? I feel as if I'm going on too far, so maybe I should have a sip of coffee and we'll just calm it down. Oh, lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay, so we're going to take it nice and calm, and we're just going to go through it very, very slowly. So to start off with, I'm going to have a look at my design, and I can decide whether I want to. I mean, I'm going sort of traditional colours in relation to flowers and being bright and colourful, just like my shirt today. And I'm going to go green for the leaves, but you can decide exactly what colourways you want to go with. You may think, oh, I want to go really funky and just keep it simple with two colours like black and red, or yellows and oranges, or purples and blues. You can decide exactly what you want to do. But I just thought I'd show you just a couple of little tips and tricks, and then what we'll do is we'll play on this and then we'll go and colour in our wreath. Okay, so I'm going to come in on this camera here, so hopefully you can see it in a little bit more detail. So I'm going to go with my two favourite colours, the yellow and the red. Okay, and these are the B pencils, so it's B8 and B11. Okay, now if you've got the Faber-Castell pencils, there's definitely going to be some beautiful reds and yellows in there as well. So When I first started colouring in on the back of parchment, this was before we owned Pergamano, we went with products that as a crafter we already had in our stash. So I had colouring pencils, I did have some Faber-Castell pencils, I had distress markers, I had water brush mark. Like you at home, you've probably got every single pen and pencil under the sun. And for me, to get that intensity of colour, I automatically thought that you had to colour in hard, colour in solid. And when I look back at some of the stuff that I've done, it looks horrible. But at the time, I was well pleased with it, and I thought, yeah, this is great, because it was that learning curve. Over the years, watching Barb in the Shack and obviously working alongside her when we were prepping for TV shows, when I watch her colour in, and I know a lot of you that follow Barb in the Shack on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, your colouring is magical, and it's all by picking up those little tips and tricks that Barbara's given out. Heavy. Right, so Gilly has said that the sound has just gone. And can anybody else hear me? Because my mics are on, the sound level there is fine. Everybody else? The sound? Maybe somebody else in the office can just check to see whether you can't hear me. Let me see. Love it. I'm glad you all like my show. I can read the comments, but I don't know whether you can hear me. So, sound's back. I think it was Gilly's computer. I think it was just her way of saying, stop talking. So, right, the sound is back now. Okay. Thanks, Gilly. Gilly's just popped her head in. So, right, because there's a little bit of a time delay. I can see Gilly's posting all these messages, but she just popped her head through the door. Okay, so back to the colouring. It's nice to have technology, isn't it, when it works and doesn't work. Okay, another message. Sound is back from Lucy. Super duper. Oh, right, okay, where was I? I think I need another drop of coffee before I get started. Right, I'm just seeing the messages are just catching up now, saying the sound has gone, but the sound is back now. No idea why. All the cables are all good, but at least you can hear me. Okay, so what I was talking about was that when I first started with my colouring, the way in which I used to colour was I'd go on really heavy. So I'd put a lot of pressure on the pencil to get that intenseness of colour. Okay, so you think, oh, I'm going to go on really heavy, I'll get really nice bright colours on the other side, and that's all I need to do. Okay, and then when you turn it over, you think, yeah, it looks okay, but I'm not exactly chuffed with it. I know why would I put another piece of black card underneath? Let me get a white piece of card so we can see. Okay, so you can see there, it looks nice and bright, but it looks very, if I bring that, see if I can bring that in really close, you can see how scratchy it looks. Okay, now say when you've coloured it all in, you may think, oh yeah, that's okay, I like that. So that was the way that I thought that I had to colour in. Now if you're going to colour in on the front, what you need to be aware of, obviously where we've embossed out our design, we've stretched the parchment. So the parchment, the fibres are now open on the front. So if we was to use, for example, the Perga pens, and we touch those white lines, what happens is that the colour would then bleed into it. And it would be the same also for the pencils, but it doesn't bleed, so to speak. So to colour in on the front, like I'm doing here, you'd get a really nice, vibrant colourway, but you have to be careful of the... So I've just brushed that, where my pencils, where I've got sort of crumbs with my pen. So I've brushed that, and that's now gone onto the white lines, and it's smeared on the front as well. So colouring on the front, again, is a skill, and we'll touch on that very, very lightly during the course of this hour if we get the time. But what I wanted to show you is what I've learned when I'm colouring with the pencils is that all you have to do is scribble on very, very lightly. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to just scribble out, scribble out the whole of the middle bit there. Okay. And then I'm just going to scribble a little bit of red in the top of these flowers. Not much, because red is the more dominant colour. So if I hold that up, you can see how scratchy that is. Okay, and I haven't coloured it all in because I don't need to. Because what happens is that when I use the Dorso oil with the blending pen, it breaks up the pigment of the colour and it spreads it, and it gives you that beautiful colour blend of colour. So we'll do it, I'm going to practice on this one just to show you exactly how it's going to work. So I'm going to take my spot on sponge, and I'm going to use my Dorso. I love this Dorso oil, and I just want to pop a bit on the sponge. Now from experience, I know that there's way too much on there, okay, because what happens if you have too much oil on the blending nib, then what happens is that it will just remove the colour. So I've got a nice clean nib, and this is the magic. Don't blink or you're going to miss this bit. I've just tapped it into the oil, and I know from experience there's way too much on there. Let me see if I can show you on here. I don't know if we can pick that up or not. But if I hold that up, you can see how much oil's on there. Okay, now again, that's way too much on there, because I know that what it will do is it will just move that colour around and it will lift it off. So we're going to have a scrap of parchment to one side, just so that you can learn the consistency of how much oil you need. And then I'm just going to work in a circular motion, and I'm going to start off just blending in the light colour first. Okay, and hopefully you can see now how that colour's intensifying and it's going smooth. For me, it's like turning a pencil into a pen. And then all I'm going to do is gradually move in to the darker areas. So you just, I work in a circular motion. Depends what type of effect you want to get. And you'll notice that I still haven't reloaded my nib. Now, as I'm turning my nib slightly, and what it's doing, it's releasing some more of the oil. So I'm going to take a scrap of parchment, and I'm going to get rid of some of that oil. But look, you've got a really nice colour that I could have coloured in one of the other flowers. And I'm just going to carry on, and then just gently. Now I'm not worried about hitting the white lines, and I'm not worried about going over the lines either. See, and I'm just going to gently blend in that colour. Okay, so I've now got sort of like an orange nib that, again, like I say, I could go in and I could colour in other areas as well. Now, you know I was saying how the pencils are more forgiving. If I take one of the white pencils, white erasers, I can now go around and tidy up where I've gone over the edges. So it's magic. So if your colouring's not so good, like if you think, oh no, I've gone over the line and I've just ruined it, you haven't, because using the pencil, I could leave this for a week, I could leave it for a month and go back and I can still adjust it. But what I can also do, if I think, oh, I didn't want an orange flower, I can just rub it all out completely. Now the darker colours like the purples, they've got more of a pigment to it, so you will get a slight hue of the colour remaining on the parchment. But that has now virtually taken it right back to the clear parchment. See? So if I bring that in, see, look, you've got a very slight hue of that orange still there. So basically, if you make a mistake, the pencils are great if you've got one of the eraser pencils to remove the colour. How is that? Does that make sense? So if you're learning to colour on your parchment, the same I suppose if you're colouring in on paper as well, to have that eraser pencil can really make a difference. And again, it's just that one little point that can give you that confidence with your colouring. You think, oh, I don't want to colour in, I can't colour in, I'm rubbish at colouring in. If you've got the right tools, then it can make a big difference. And because we're starting off small, in small areas, it's easier to control. So again, you can look at it and you think, maybe those two colours don't go together, maybe they do, maybe they don't. So you've got that choice then to take the rubber and just rub it out and start again. Oh dear. And breathe. What's the weather like with you today? Down here, I mean, it's fresh, but it's nice and sunny. It was a bit grey and overcast this morning, but I could see the sun coming up out the office windows this morning. It was lovely, really nice. So I thought, this was the shirt that Barb and Dave bought me, so I thought we're adding some colour, so we'll go nice and colourful today and brighten up the day even further. Okay, so if you've had a little practice, should we go on to our finished piece now so we can work along and start to build that up? Okay, now for me personally, if I'm colouring in, I do all my pencil work first and then I do all my blending afterwards, because it means I could take, if like with the yellow in the middle of those flowers, I can do all the yellow on all the areas where I've done the yellow, then I can do the red and start to blend it and still use the same nib. And then that's why you keep your nibs in a pot. So if you think, oh, I'm just going orange, then you'll have a little orange nib in there. So let's have a look. What we're going to do now is we're going to go to our finished piece. So you decide on the colours. If you want to go with the same colours as me, then that's great. If you want to choose different colours, that's great as well. And all I'm going to do, so just remember, I'm just going to go on very, very lightly, not too heavy. Imagine, you know, like when we was doing the white work last week, and we was just building up the layers of the white work. It's the same type of pressure that you apply onto there. So I'm just going to put some yellow in these flowers here. And don't forget, you don't need to colour it all in, because it's going to blend and move out. So I'm going to do the same with this flower. We'll put some yellow in the middle as well. So that's going to be my yellow flowers that I'm going to turn into orange. So we'll just put a little bit of red just in those areas there. And I put a tiny little, with the darker colour, you need to be careful that you don't put too much dark colour in, because it will dominate the lighter colour. Okay, so a little bit of red just in those top areas. Again, for me, there's no skill required when it comes to doing this. The skill that required is when you're colouring on the front. So let's have a look, what other colours have we got? So I reckon I'm going to go with maybe a light blue, and so I'm going with the B16, which is the lighter blue, and then I reckon I'm going to go with a purple, a B14, to get me my sort of contrast of colours. So I'm going to put a little bit of blue at the top of these ones, and again you decide on what colours you want to go with. So we're going to go just on the, I mean, if you want to keep it all in the yellows and reds, then that's perfect. If you just want to go with those, then no one's saying it's right or wrong. You go with whatever colour theme you want to. So where else are we going? Just a little bit over here. So you can see I'm just gently, I'm not putting no pressure on. And we'll go purple in the middle of that one. That one we've done some white work on, so that doesn't need much on there. So that's those two colours we've used. Then I'm going to go with a nice bright green. So we've got the B7, nice and bright. And then we'll go with the B6 just to add a little bit of depth to it as well. So again, I'm just going to put a light coating of green over all of this, and I'll just keep it simple, and we'll do all of our leaves in the same shade of green to start off with. Because again, as I said, you can build up your layers of colour. Okay, so we're working on these small areas here, and obviously when we get to the butterfly, it's a larger area. But what I love is that it's great that you've got all these different sections that you can break up as well. So we'll carry on putting this light green in. I love this really bright, zesty green. And we'll go along just gently, again no pressure, just on that one. I'll put a little bit on there. Oh, I've got a couple of flowers up here, I've forgotten about those. What colour should we do those? Ooh, decisions. Ooh, in the pencils is the B13, and it's like a rich burgundy. So I think we'll go with a really rich burgundy on that one. And then maybe, oh, I know what we can do. We can take the white pencil and we can put some white towards the bottom, so we can get that light and darkness of it. And then for this one, what other colours? I'm going to go with the B5 on this one, and we'll just keep this one a solid colour. Okay, so for me, that's all my pencil work in relation to my floral bouquet. We're going to do this in stages. So again, it's just building up your colourways and just having a look. If I hold this up to the camera, you'll see how scratchy. I've turned it over so we're looking at the front, and you can see how scratchy it looks, and how I haven't gone straight up to the edges. There's open parts in there, because again, we don't need to. Okay. Right, so I've got all my pencils there, so I'm going to just pop those in front of me, so I've got them to hand if I need to. Sometimes it's good, I know Barb often does it when you're working with a piece, that was good English. If you write the list of colours down onto a scrap of parchment that you've got that you're working on, so if for example you've had to pop out, or you want to have a rest from it, then at least you know the colours that you've used, and because they've all got the numbers on them, it's great for doing that. And again, on the practice piece where we was working on earlier, what you can do, you could write the colours that you've used, so that if you put this in your little folder, then you've got something to refer back to. Now, the Dorso oil that we're going to use, you can use with any wax-based pencil. So with the Faber-Castell Polychromos, you can use it on anything that's sort of wax-based, the Spectrum Noir pencils, you can use it on that as well. All it is just a medium for breaking down the pigment. I mean, when I say breaking it down, it's not like it's corrosive or anything like that. What it does, it just blends the pigments together. And it's really good. I mean, I've still got this little drop on the sponge here from earlier, and I can go back and I can use this for a while whilst we're working on this project. So, are we ready for the next step? To start blending our colourways in. Have you all done your colouring in? The messages I can just sort of see from the corner of my eyes are sort of going up and down, but I think there's a slight time delay with that. So if you've got any questions, ask away on the chat, and if Jilly can't help me, she'll send me a text message and I'll see if I can answer them whilst we're doing the show. Okay, time for another drink of coffee. Lovely. Coffee and crafting. The only thing that's missing is cake, but I can have some afterwards. Okie dokie. Right, so I've got my pot of nibs that I keep, and with a yellow, it's the same when Barb says when you're working with ink pads, always have one just for yellows. And what that means is that because it'll always be contaminated with other colours, so if I'm going to start off with my yellow, then I always start off with a clean nib. It's just, for me, it makes sense. And then when I blend it in with the red, I've then got an orange one. If I blend the purples, you just sort of build it up. So I'm just going to take a drop of the oil onto the nib, and then I can use this piece of parchment to have a look to see how much oil I've got on there. And I know I've got way too much on there still. And I'm not putting pressure on. All I'm doing is I'm just removing some of the oil. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to blend in. Now, I know that this is moving too quickly. And what it's doing, it's starting to lift some of the colour. So that means I've still got too much oil on there. So I'm just going to take my scrap and I'm just going to remove. You could take a tissue and dab it onto a tissue, but for me, I like to see on a piece of parchment how much oil is still on there. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to blend everywhere and just break down. I've got my yellow. So I've got yellow on that one. I've got yellow on these bits. And again, it doesn't matter if I go over the edges, because don't forget the eraser is brilliant for correcting that. So we're just going to colour in. Can't believe where this time's going already. 22. So what have I got to tell you this week? Let me see. Right, so the new plate mate for grids. Crazy. That seems like such a long time ago last week when Barb launched those on the Pergamano show, and you've absolutely gone for it like crazy. And what a game changer. For those that sort of missed out on the show or don't know what I'm talking about, let me just quickly show you. I know I digressed slightly. This is the new plate mate for grids, designed by both Barbara and Josie. Barbara came up with the idea of when you're working with your parchment, and especially if you're working with the duet grids, you need to be able to line it up. And so this plate mate was born. and it's got so much detail on it. Now, in addition to the plate mate, you also get a couple of step-by-step projects that Josie's created that guide you through on how just to very simply create some amazing artwork. So if you love the effect of grid work, but you feel, wow, those duet plates are way out of my league, then this is a good starting point. So Gilly will put that information up on there if you missed out on that anyway. So yeah, so that was sort of a crazy couple of hours on TV with that. And yeah, it was just seems like a blur now last week. Okay, so I've done my yellow and I've blended in my yellows. Now what I could do, because this is a light colour, I could go into my light green and start to break those down. So I'm going to do that, and you'll see that as we start to smooth out the colourways, it becomes nice. It is like, it's the magic of the Dorso oil, and although it's got moisture, it evaporates, so it doesn't let, it means that the parchment won't buckle. And because you've got these fine tips on the nibs, you can really get into the areas that you need to get into. Okay, and again, you'll notice that I still haven't loaded up the nib. This is still from that initial little tap into the sponge. So we're just going to carry on and do all that green as well, because what happens is that the green dominates the yellow that we used, and because it's a very similar shade, it really doesn't matter if oh, I don't know, I've thrown what I was going to say now. Brain freeze. It'll come back to me. When I'm using the nib, you don't need, Gilly's just sent me a question, do I need to apply much pressure? You don't. It's the same type of pressure again as if you was doing the white work. So it's just very gently. It sounds as if I'm going hard and it's really scratchy, but it's not. It's all we're doing is, Barbara often talks about, you know how you hover over when you're sort of working with your doodling, you're hovering over with your pencil and you're just going on lightly. That's the same thing that I'm doing here, because I don't need to apply pressure, because the pressure won't do anything. All it will do is just make your nibs go blunt. So very just light pressure, just to break down the pigment of the pencils. So I've done all my greens, and I can actually turn it over and have a look, and if I pop a piece of white paper underneath, I'll be able to see if I've got any scratchy areas. And the only scratchy areas at the moment is where I haven't broken down the reds, the purples and the blues. So now what I can do is I can go in and we'll start with the red, and I reckon I've probably still got enough, yeah, plenty on here still to start breaking down. The less oil you have on the blending nib, the more of a natural blend you'll get. When the colour starts to stop moving, like I can feel it now, it's starting to stop blending as well, then all I need to do is just add a little bit more oil. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to just take a little bit more oil, and I'm just going to take off, so I can use the sponge to remove some of the oil. I'm going to test on here to see how much oil I've got on there. Still quite a lot on there. Okay, we're going to do that and just remove. And now when I go in, see how, yeah, hopefully you saw how that red moved more easily. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave it so it looks a bit odd. Okay, and there's a reason for that. I don't obviously want a solid yellow piece in the middle. I want a really nice blend, but we're going to go with that for that at the moment, and we'll come back to it. And now all I'm going to do is just gently, you know how we was doing the white work before? I'm just going to push outwards, or if you prefer, you can push towards you. And I'm starting at the bottom of the tip of that so that it starts to bring in that colour. And again, I'm really not worried about going over the edge. Lovely. Really, really nice. Now I reckon I may need to put some more oil on, but let's have a look. No, I think I'm alright at the moment. So again, so I find for me circular motions, working around in circles, just helps break that down. Now I was a bit skimpy on the red over here, but again, I'm not worried about that because, as we said, we can go in and we can build up the colours. Okay, let's have a look at that onto a white piece. So we can see, but I mean, look at that. It looks a bit rank, really, doesn't it? Not very blended. We've got more of a sort of a blend over on this area. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop that nib to one side because we can use that one again for another colour. I'm going to find a clean nib. And then just with a dry nib, all I'm going to do now, I'm putting a little bit more pressure on, but I'm going to start to really sort of just bring those colours together. Okay, now it's still not moving because again I haven't put any oil on, so I want a wincy tiny little bit on there. So I'm gonna do that. Okay, no, too much. Let's have a look. I reckon that should do it. So it's all about just breaking it down very, very gently. And you'll get into a habit of just loading up when you need it. And you're just going to break up the edges. Nice. I like that. And then you're just going to go in, let's have a look, a little bit more there. And you could spend just as long on your colouring in as you do with your white work. But I just want a really nice sort of subtle, soft blend. And you can see now how it's starting to sort of just tone down slightly. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in. Oh, I need to do this one, don't I? There we go. We're just going to break that down a little bit more. It just takes away some of the harsh shape to it. And you know what? At the end of the day, a flower is a flower. No, who's to say what's right and what's wrong? In nature, all flowers are different. And it's called learning. Okay, so we've done that one. So we still need to blend in these other ones. So we'll just take another, it says picking up, fingers are too chunky to get in the pot. There we go, another nib there. Let's see how much we've got on there. There we go. So again, I'm going to do the same as before. I'm going to do the light colours first, just to break down the pigment. Nice and easy. And again, so if you do all the same colour first, it just saves you, because if I blended all of that, I've then got to get a new nib to go in there to keep the blue, that sort of natural blue colour. Otherwise, all I'm doing is transferring the colourway. Now I've got that colour there, so now I'm just going to gently start to blend in the darker colour, and I missed a bit there. So where's my purple pencil gone? Is it that one? Yeah, there we go. See, so I can go back in and just, it's only very subtle. And again, these are great for practicing your colouring in because they're small areas. So, can't believe where the time's going. It's just absolutely flying by. So what other news have we got? Well, the sun's shining down here. I think that's some good news. That's something nice to be happy about. On Friday, as usual, if you've signed up to our newsletters, then you'll know every Friday the lovely Hazel Edwards does a Groovi download, Shack download. They're all available. I think we're up to about 43 or 44 episodes so far from the lovely Hazel. So again, if you think, oh, let's have a look, you may see something on there and you think, oh, I could do that. Then give it a go. It's free, it's a download, or you can just look at it on the screen and follow it through. It's entirely up to you. On the Clarity Matters blog every Sunday, we've got Groovi Sunday, where the design team, last week we was looking at the beautiful grids from Josie. She did a beautiful step-by-step. So that's every Sunday on the claritymattersblog.com. So we've got that to keep you inspired. Obviously we've got Groovi Worldwide on Facebook. If you belong to that, then the design team, it's all about giving you ideas and inspiration and just having a, and if you've got any questions, then you just go on to there and then you just say, don't ever think a question is a silly question. If you don't know the answer, why would it be a silly question? What's obvious to one person isn't necessarily obvious to somebody else. It's the same when Barb came out with Trap the Scrap. It was obvious now that it was a perfect technique, but in the past it wasn't. So never be scared to ask a question. It's such a fantastic place for knowledge and ideas and inspiration. So if you think, because I bet you, if you ask that question, there's probably 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 30 other people out there that want to know the same answer. And it can be as simple as, how do I attach my parchment to a piece of card? And then you'll get answer after answer after answer after answer. So it's not, they're never, if you don't be, what I'm saying is, don't be afraid to ask, because if you don't ask, you don't get. So really sort of, if you're not a member of Groovi Worldwide or Clarity Worldwide, then join up and you can just, the design team are on both pages and it's just full of knowledge and ideas and inspiration. I was hoping that we could have a look at some attaching of parchment today, but I realised that the time's sort of running and we've still got this to colour in. So next week, what we're going to do, I'm going to show you various different ways of attaching the parchment. So we'll start off doing that. So what we're going to do in between now and next Tuesday, if you carry on with your colouring in, and don't forget, you've got the magic of the eraser pencil, that if you think, ooh, I don't like it, then you've got that. That's, for me, the eraser for colouring is the safety net, like the Groovi plate is for tracing out the design. So we're going to, I've still got time at the moment anyway, but I know we'll never get to colouring in the butterfly. So what we'll do is we'll spend a little bit more time. I'm going to go through and I'm going to tidy up where I've gone over my edges. Okay, I'm going to show you a little bit of colouring just on the front. And then I think for homework or for practice, I want you to colour in the butterfly before next week, and the words as well. See, the words, this is where the nibs really come in, because they're so fine. You could do, if I show you that piece, where's it gone? I just chose some colours and done the letters as a solid colour. Okay. So you can colour in your letters, you can colour in your butterfly. I think what we'll do, I'm going to show you next week how to blend the heels in differently. So if you leave your heels and your sun we'll do that next week. But the butterfly, you'll definitely be able to colour in the butterfly based on what we've been doing on here. So I know that I haven't done this one, so what colour? I've got that purple. I think that purple will still, that will work. A little bit more oil just to blend in. So, and then we'll just go in. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Nice. Now if you want to add a little bit more depth to your foliage, to your leaves, then just take, for example, I've gone with the dark green. Just put a little bit of dark green at the bottom of the leaves. See, and it starts to change the look of it. So to do that, it's just the same as when we was doing with the white work. We're just flicking. So a really sharp pencil. Again, I'm not putting any pressure on. I'm just starting off at the line and I'm just flicking upwards. And what it does, so basically what I'm doing, let me show you on a scrap of paper. I'll do it, put some pressure on so you can see. What I'm doing is I'm starting off and I'm flicking away. And as I flick away, just like I was doing with the white work, I'm lifting the pencil up. And what you'll do is you'll get your concentration of colour here, but it gets lighter as you draw the pencil away. And just by putting a little bit of the dark green just at the bottom, it just adds. And I'm not going to blend that in. I think I'm quite happy with just keeping it sort of raw, so to speak. So just little flicks of the pencil. And that one's got that little area there. It's just, it's surprising. You don't realise that how the hour just sort of flies by. It really does. And again, you can just do a little bit of flicking. Yeah, that's nice. So when we turn it over, I know it's harder to see on the black, but if I put white behind it, what that's going to do, yeah, I mean, it makes it more vibrant, but yeah, you can still see that actually. You can see how we're starting. So I'm not happy with this one up here, so I'm going to blend that down a little bit further with some oil, just to give it so it doesn't look so red in those particular areas. But you can see how it's starting to blend those colours in. And by not blending the darker green in, for me, that works for me. I mean, you can blend if you choose to. So we've built up our beautiful flower wreath. And as I say, over the course of the week, if you colour in your butterfly and your words and leave your landscape blank, I'm going to show you, it's called dorsing. And again, I've watched Linda and the likes of that and the other sort of real experts colouring it in. And it's just a quick, on larger areas, there's a quick way of colouring in. We've been concentrating on small areas in order to be able to just keep it easy. And again, if you're not into the blending and you want to colour in, just like I showed you at the beginning, if you want to go in heavy and more solid with your colours, that's fine. I mean, I did that for several months when we first brought out the Groovi system, because that's all I knew. And if I was happy with it at the time, but again, it's like anything, you just progress and you learn more. Now what I will do, I'll just show you just on the front how you can intensify some of the colour if you want to. So I'm going to have a look at these flowers here. Okay, and for that what I'm going to need is a really sharp pencil. So I'm just going to sharpen my pencil so I've got a really nice point to it. And then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to start the point. I'm not going to go on to the white and I'm just going to very, you know how we did the green on the back? Very, very light, but this is even lighter. And all I'm going to do is just very lightly flick away from the bottom. I'm sort of holding my breath a bit, I don't know why. I think because I don't want to touch the white lines. And then we're going to go around. I'll do a couple of them so that you can see the difference, but it really does need to be, and what you don't want to do is take your finger and wipe it. Ideally what you need is a soft brush, because if you blow you'll end up spitting at your work. There we go. I nearly did it. It's habit. You go like that because you're working on the back. Okay, so let's, we'll just, and it's amazing. It works beautifully on the butterfly. If you're gonna, my suggestion, I know what I'm gonna do when I colour in my butterfly. I'm gonna use the yellows and the reds to create beautiful tones of oranges on that, and then I'm gonna add this type of detail on the front. So let's see if you can see that. Yeah, you can. So this one here, I haven't done anything on, but this one here, I've put that colour on the front, and it's just made it that little bit more brighter. Again, I could do it on those leaves as well, but the key is to have a really sharp pencil to be able to do that. Why not give it a go? You've got your practice piece. Why not have a practice? Colour in one of the flowers on the back, like we've just done. And then on the front, have a practice with your flicking. But it needs to be a really sharp pencil in order to, especially in the small areas as well. If we was working on a larger area, then a sharp pencil will make a big difference. But what I'm saying is, on a larger area, it's harder to control. On the small areas, it's not that difficult. And again, you can rub out on the front. You just need to be wary of the white lines so that the pigment doesn't go into it. So as I said, for homework next week, I'll do the same. I'm going to colour in my butterfly. I'm going to colour in my letters. And then together, what we'll do is we'll do the landscape in a different method. Then I'll show you some ways of attaching your parchment. There's loads of different ways to attach your parchment to a finished piece, and we'll go through those. And then we'll start a new project using the same plates. We're going to turn the circle into a square. So I hope that's given you some ideas and hints and tips and everything else. And if you've got any questions, I hope you've been asking and the team have been able to answer them for you. Don't forget, Barb's back in the shack on Monday. Mondays, Wednesdays and Friday. The bus is in the garage at the moment, just having a rest. Friday, Barb's on TV on Hochanda with some beautiful, beautiful stamps from Cherry Green. It's at 9 o'clock AM and 1 PM. Yep, 9 and 1. And I shall see you next week for another Groovy Tuesday. So stay home and craft, be safe, happy and creative, and I'll see you again next Tuesday. Take care now. Bye bye.